You may have heard about the recent Takata bankruptcy. Takata is a major supplier of airbags to automobile manufacturers around the world. And people are wondering, what does this bankruptcy mean? What does it do for me? Or what are the consequences of it? And those are very good questions. I think the first and most important thing to know is that the Takata litigation is about defective airbags in millions of vehicles throughout the United States. And people need to first understand whether or not they have one of these vehicles. And they can do that by going to nhtsa.gov. That's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration website. If you have one of these vehicles, you may have a claim against Takata and the manufacturer of the vehicle. But that claim is on hold right now due to this bankruptcy. The first thing that filing bankruptcy does for Takata is it puts the litigation on hold. And this gives a time for the bankruptcy court to evaluate Takata's bankruptcy filings and to determine whether bankruptcy is an appropriate type of relief for Takata to get some relief from its creditors. Takata has over $9 billion in debts and not nearly that many assets, and so it is seeking relief from these lawsuits, among other things, from the bankruptcy court. The good news is, even if Takata is granted a discharge in bankruptcy, which I expect, that does not mean the end of the road for consumers and their claims against Takata and the manufacturers. First, there's a recall effort already underway. The recall effort, probably about 35% of cars have been repaired, but that means there are millions on the road that haven't. And that recall effort will be funded by several sources. I expect that Takata will be sold to a competitor for approximately $1.6 billion, and that money will be used to fund the recall. Also, the manufacturers of the vehicles themselves are going to be required to ensure that the vehicles are recalled and properly repaired. So you're going to see everyone from BMW to GM to Ford to Subaru and all these manufacturers continuing to put up money to ensure that the recall is properly completed. In addition, Takata is only supplying a fraction of the inflators for this recall, probably about 25%. So the inflators are coming from other sources anyway. So to the extent that Takata slows down or ceases production of airbags, that should not affect the recall. Now, if you own one of these vehicles, you still have a claim, even if Takata, the airbag manufacturer, is discharged in bankruptcy, you still may have a claim against the manufacturer of the vehicle, whether it be GM or Honda or Ford or whoever. And those claims have been filed and are going forward. There have been settlements reached against 4 manufacturers already, BM, Mazda, Subaru, and Toyota, that provide about $550 million in compensation to the thousands and thousands of consumers that own those vehicles. And so that relief will not be affected by the bankruptcy, and claims against other manufacturers are continuing and will be allowed to go forward despite the bankruptcy. For instance, there's evidence that Honda knew of problems with inflators as far back as 2004, but did nothing until 2014 to address this issue. So the Takata bankruptcy filing is a very significant event in this Takata litigation that has been ongoing now for 2 or 3 years, but it will not mean the end of the litigation, and it does not mean that people who have claims are going to lose those claims. The Takata's liability may be written off at some point in the future, but there are still good claims against auto manufacturers, and there's still feasible alternatives to having the vehicles repaired, and that will continue.